Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
It's alive!
Welcome to Where the Weird Ones Are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
We have found the witch. May we burn her?
How do you know she is a witch?
She looks like one.
Bring her forward.
I'm not a witch, I'm not a witch.
But you are dressed as one.
They dressed me up like this. And this isn't my nose, it's a false one.
Well,
Well, we did do the nose
the nose?
and the hat, but she's a witch.
Did you dress her up like this?
No.
No.
Yes. Yeah, a bit. She has got a wart.
What makes you think she is a witch?
Well, she turned me into a newt.
A newt?
We got better.
Hello, everybody. This is Where the Weird Ones Are. My name's Kevin, and today we will be talking with Christina, who is a white witch, and she is in the paranormal field investigating. I also have my sister here, Tanya. She's going to be co-hosting. Tanya, say hi.
Hi.
Say something about yourself, since this is the first time that we will be co-hosting a show together.
Oh, I'm Kevin's sister.
Oh, geez, thanks. That's very descriptive.
It's my first time. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, if you guys have anything weird, paranormal activity, maybe an experience with a cryptid, that would be fun. You could always email me at wheretheweirdonесare@gmail.com, and we could set something up like this, and we could talk about it. Christina, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kevin. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Real quick, you want to tell everybody, the 5 people that listen to this and watch this, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Christina. I am based in West Palm Beach, Florida. As Kevin said, I am a white witch. I've been pagan for about 11 years now. I'm really just a white witch, just, about a lot of Wicca practices, and I'm a Reiki healer on a level 2 level. And I guess now I'm a paranormal investigator. I just started that in April and joined Haunted South Florida in August. And so I've been taking my little witchiness to the next level and testing my gift of clairvoyance that I've had since I was 9 to the max in haunted houses. And that's been quite an experience. So that's what I kind of do on the side and at nighttime. By day, I have a master's in medical cannabis. So I work for Cetera Wellness by day.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
That goes into my little witchiness too. I always feel like, I feel like cannabis has been medicine for years, and it's stone herb as it is. So it goes into it.
It brings it full circle. You got everything.
I think so. It definitely, I definitely live an eclectic life. Like when I tell people what I do, they're just like, oh wow, okay, you do a lot of different things.
So, do you want to like plug your things? You have a website and your Instagram and all that stuff for people to follow if they're interested?
Yeah. So if you're into paranormal, I have a handle, an Instagram handle. It's at Witchy Paranormal. Should I spell it out? Like, should I just
For
spell it
sure. Yeah, might as well. Just in case some
out?
people might be a little bit illiterate. You never know.
Yeah, no, for sure. So at Witchy Paranormal would be at WITCHY PARANORMAL. And then I do have an Etsy. I sell crystal jewelry and crystal carvings on the side, and do Reiki. I do them in person, but during the pandemic, I had just started and learned that you can do Reiki distance. So I also do them over FaceTime and things like that. So if you're interested in the metaphysical side of things, I also have Heal with Christina, and that is at HEALWITHKRISTINA. And my Etsy's on there. So it depends on what your niche is, but if you like both, you can go to both.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So when would you say that you started being or started getting into healing and the white witchiness?
So like I started even diving into I started diving into Wicca first, and that was probably around when I was 18. And I have the usual story that a lot of people have. I was raised Catholic. I started Sunday school at like 6. And I was devout. Like I went to youth group twice a week. I was super, I loved all about, I had over 500 hours of community service going to college. I did 3 mission trips. I really was. I was devout. I was so happy. My main group was in the church. At 17, I spoke up at youth group about just my confusion as to why it was a sin to have an abortion, which is ironic since we still have these conversations today.
Yep.
And I got kicked out. I was told not to return, and it was devastating. So
Wow.
That was the beginning of starting to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? I ended up going to Florida State, and I tried to go to a Catholic church up there, and it just wasn't the same. There was no going back. There really wasn't. I just was so hurt and so upset. So when I was 18, I was living with a ghost for 9 months in my dorm. And that's when I started to learn that I had seen a ghost when I was 9, but I was so afraid of it. When I was 18, I had to live with this. And it was wild. It was definitely a poltergeist. It was friendly, but I started to realize that I can communicate with her. I was able to see her, and she got really strong. Like, so other people started to see her, but I lived with, she lived in my room, like in my dorm room, in my bed. She would my roommates saw her in my bed.
Oh my goodness.
So as those things started to happen, I took a history of religion course and realized that I could really go any route that I wanted. And I started to go through this witchy phase, and it just ended up never ending. It never went away. It just, I started doing, I started with Wicca. I was such a traditional baby witch. I was like, oh, Wicca seems safe. It's like nature-based. And I would learn about all the Sabbats. I was doing all the holidays and my rituals. And I was just like, oh, so this is so fun. And so I am part Italian. And so I started to dive into then Strega witchcraft. It was very dark. It was so dark. Wicca was good. Coming from Catholicism, Wicca was a good transition. And I feel a lot of baby witches do that.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Strega, I realized I was afraid of the darkness. So I was very much just white witch for a long time. I think the darkest things that I've been doing is now with the paranormal, actually going into these haunted homes and diving into it. I think that I'm just now starting to dive into this occult side, but it started when I was 18, and I was I was so upset about being kicked out of the church, and I what I was so beautiful about, I started doing more than just Wicca. I started looking into other paganism, like the Celts and the Druids, and that was through past life regression. I had learned that I had reincarnated 3 times, and I was trying to like learn about different things. And now I just fall under paganism because I still follow the Sabbats of Wicca, and I still do my new moon rituals and my full moon rituals, and they're just so innocent. Like when people ask me like, oh, you know, like, do you do spells? And I'm like, not really. Like I put some herbs in my little cauldron and I light it on fire and I write under the moon and dance to Stevie Nicks, and they're just like, oh. I was like, I don't. That's the biggest thing. When people, I had someone ask me like, do you do hexes? And I was like, no, ma'am.
What's the point?
I don't do that. My biggest thing is like, again, back to having the one thing about having, you know, what there's a lot of ugly parts about the Catholic. There's a lot of ugliness.
Oh,
to
for
it.
sure.
I'm not
For
going to
sure.
get into it, but there are pretty aspects. And one thing about like Wicca, that there was a couple things that matched up with that part. Like you treat others the way you want to be treated. What you put out into the world, you'll get back in threefold, and that's good or bad. Like there's like, you know, certain things that you should just follow through. And so one thing that I always thought was just like, I believe like all religions should be represented. I believe that like all people should be represented. And so like, I don't believe in harming people. Like that's not what, like when you look at it on like a religious standpoint, like if you're going to look at paganism as a religion,
Yep.
like why would, like, you can't harm people? That just makes you bad as any other extreme religion that's out there.
You're
So
100%.
I guess to your first question, I guess 18. I started I had a ghost. I knew I could communicate with it, and I had to do something about it since I no longer could find a church that made sense to me.
Well, I love how you
That's the
went off
question,
on this
go away.
whole thing from one question. That was intriguing, actually. It was really nice to listen to.
Thanks. It's definitely a loaded question, you know, like those
I
questions.
mean, yeah, for sure.
This path is, I said it before we started, like it doesn't make sense sometimes. Some things come to you and you're like, I don't know if I should do this.
I feel you. So we actually have I guess like a white witch shaman story around our area.
Oh,
So
very
I don't know
cool.
if have you ever been to Maine at all?
No, I've never been to Maine.
Okay.
It's on the list though.
All right. So we have Saco River. Saco River, it runs from the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and it comes down through Maine to the southern part, and it opens up into the ocean, into the Atlantic Ocean. So back in the 1600s, there was a Secocas tribe that lived near the mouth. They had a village, and then the settlers were creating their little towns with Biddeford and Saco. And supposedly, so the chief of the Secoca tribe, his name was Squando, not to be confused with Squanto, and because that's a famous Indian there, but his name, it's just a D instead of a T.
Right.
And he's legitimate. Like he's in the museum and Saco and everything. There's there's a whole list of things.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love this.
So apparently he was he was a healer. He had magical, mystical powers about him and whatnot. And supposedly he had rescued a white girl from a raid or something like that. So like all the settlers, like they all lived in peace. Like everything was great. And then he got married, and he had a son. And so in 1675, there was a ship that was coming in to the mouth of the river, and they had anchored, and they were porting, and there was 3 sailors. They were canoeing to get off the ship to land, and they came across this chief's wife and newborn son. and they were also in a canoe, so they were passing by. And I believe how the story goes, Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know the story at all. I don't know if you do. But I believe all three men were drunk, and they got right up with the chief's wife's canoe and said, "Isn't it true that native children can swim as soon as they come out of the womb like animals?" And they took the baby and threw him in the river. And then the mother instantly jumped in after him and ultimately rescued him. But he would later, a few days later, he would die from, inhalation of, water and stuff like that. So he had placed a curse on the entire river, going from its start in the White Mountains to the very end where it meets the ocean. And it was the curse is every year 3 white men will drown in the river. And so since the late 1600s to today, 3 white people, not just white men, like it's white people.
Okay, so now it's white people.
Yeah, it's just white people in general.
And it still holds up today?
Yeah. So what's that, Tanya?
That's tragic.
No, I was just saying yes.
Oh, yeah.
Every year.
Yeah, every year. There was.
That's tragic. That is like.
Yeah, 1947 was the only year throughout history since the supposed curse was put on the river that there was 0 deaths.
I wonder why. I wonder what the significance of 1947 was.
Yeah, that's you asking a question that I asked myself when I heard it. So, but no,
that is wild. I have never heard of that before. That is the most wild story.
Yeah,
I can't believe that holds up today. That's terrible.
I mean, the river's rough. It's a rough river. In some parts, there's a lot of parts that are it's nice, it's easy. But right at the mouth, right in between Saco and Biddeford, you got the ocean. So you got the tide coming in and coming out.
Yeah.
And there's a serious undertow. Undertow right there.
Dang.
So.
Wow.
But yeah, so that river has claimed a lot of lives. It's not only 3, but it's at least 3.
At least 3.
It's never anything less than 3.
Well, except for 1947.
Yeah, except for
1947. And I guess
that's
supposedly a lot of people thought the curse was broken in 1947, and they just like.
Oh yeah, I would think the same. Like, oh yes, we went a year with no deaths, and then next year it's like comes like twice fold. Like.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's wild.
A lot of locals, like especially like the old timers now, they remember. Their parents being like, "Hey, stay out of the river. Wait until 3 people die, and then you can go in the river. Wait till 3 people die, and for this season or for this year, once the 3rd person dies in that river, you can go in the river."
That's also like a little morbid, though. Like, okay, 3 people died. You can go now. It's fine. Coast is clear.
I actually had a girlfriend in high school. She had an uncle that passed away in that river when he was a boy. Like he was a young boy. So
does it happen at this like around the same time of year? Or there's like no rhyme or reason for that? I don't think it does. Okay. I mean, it's mainly like swimming season, so technically summer-ish. Spring, summer, early fall. Yeah, you guys get seasons. I forget that you get seasons. In Florida, we don't get seasons.
Yeah, we can't have 70-degree weather in the winter.
Oh,
although we've had winters that were like, pretty warm.
Really?
Yeah, we've had a few. I mean, it wasn't like super warm, but it was warmer than normal.
It was warmer than you would expect it to be. No, this has been like I mean, I know November's only been 3 days, but like the last 3 days have been 90 degrees. And I'm like, we had one day in October where it got down to like 64. And I was like, ooh, I could wear a jacket. Like literally.
Today here up here was I was 68 or 70
Okay.
and in the
I'd
mid for
actually
like
be
an
okay
hour.
with that. That'd be fine. I was thinking like it'd be like freezing. Like
I mean, nighttime we get 38.
yeah, that's cold.
So
I'd have a coat.
yeah.
That'd be
My kids and I just went out to Arizona in September, and it was freaking scorching hot during the day, and then it was like 50 degrees at night, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
how do
like-
you dress for that?
Right, exactly. We would come in from hiking at like 85 degrees, almost 90 degrees. Actually, I think it was 90 degrees a lot, mostly every day. And then we'd come in, we'd go swimming and stuff in the hotel and whatnot. And then we'd get dressed to go out to get dinner, and we'd walk out and I'd be like, where's my I need my hoodie. It's freaking
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna need it.
yeah.
Oh my.
So
Arizona's really cool. I was out there like in 2020, like in August of 2020, because I went out to Yellowstone. I went and did like a road trip out there to get away from
Ooh,
the internet. It was
Yellowstone.
awesome.
I want to do that. There's a
swear I
lot of
saw a
entities
UFO
out there
there.
from what I hear.
It's really cool. It's something that you should. I was like camping, like I was like in a car with a tent,
Nice.
and I swear I saw a UFO. Like I was just staring for like 4 hours at the stars, and I was like, it was not a shooting star. There was like this huge thing. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like there was like no lights out there. Like there was just so many stars. Like I had like and there's too much like city out here and like where I am. So like you get like a star. And like when there's like a really bright one, you're like, oh, that's a planet. No.
Nice.
In Yellowstone at
Oh my
night, if
goodness.
you're like in those campsites, breathtaking. You have to do it at least once.
Oh
It's
man.
amazing.
Oh man. I actually just heard a pretty nasty story about Yellowstone yesterday.
Oh my
Actually.
gosh.
So this group of teenagers, I think the oldest was like 20,
Oh wow.
but there
Okay,
was like
yeah.
there was like 6 or 8 of them. So they ages ranged from 15 to 20. And
Okay.
this one girl had to get talked into going. So, but she ultimately went, and they were out swimming. They took this really long trail from the parking lot, and I want to say it was, I'm pretty sure it's a river. I don't think it's a lake. I'm not 100%.
I was gonna say
sure
there's
with the
so
layout.
many areas out there. So who I think there's like there's like 4 different entrances, and
Yep.
there's even another entrance to the Grand Teton. So I don't even know, but like there's so many little areas. But the rivers are like they're wild. Like some
Yeah.
of them have crazy waterfalls.
I can imagine. But anyways, I guess so. Supposedly they ended up swimming for a lot longer than they should have, or that they meant to, and it got dark, and they couldn't see. They didn't have flashlights.
Oh
They
my
weren't
gosh.
prepared, so
I'm scared
they were
for
like they were scared to go through the trail into the woods because you know that you got wild animals out there. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
wolves, bears, and all that.
Oh yeah. Mountain
so-
lions.
Yeah. And this the girl that had to get talked into, I can't remember. I want to say her name's Sarah, but it doesn't really matter. But she didn't really want to go through the trail, and she's like, "Well, what if we just cut through this way where there's no trees, where we can use the moonlight to walk, and then it might take a little bit longer, but we could probably still get to the parking lot with ease." So they ended up splitting up into 2 groups, and it was this girl Sarah and 2 other guys, and then the rest of them ran through the trail. They're like, "Well, let's just run as fast as we can, and nothing will get us." But
Oh
you
my
can't see it.
gosh.
But so they
Right? Like, you got no life.
yeah. So I guess these 3 walked around the edge, and they came across a stream. They jumped over the stream. And they came across a second stream. And they jumped over that one, and they come to a third one. It's a little bit wider, but they're like,
Oh.
"We're just gonna have to like run and jump for this." And meanwhile, and in that moment, the other group had gotten back to the parking lot, so they're waiting by the car. So then they all 3 of them hold hands, and they back up, and then they run and jump over, and they clear it. But the other side, the ground is soft, and they all 3 fall backwards into the water. and what it looked like was very like shallow water. I guess it turned out to be like 10 feet deep or something like that.
Oh no. Oh no.
But-
Unlock my biggest fear. Like,
If you know where I'm going with this, it was hazard water from a geyser or whatever. So it was boiling water.
oh my god. I was literally I was like, oh my god, wait, it's probably really hot.
Yeah. So I guess this girl was like 4'10",
Oh,
and then
wow.
the two boys were fairly tall. They fell in, and all of a sudden the other group heard screaming, and they come running, and the two boys were out of the water trying to pull the girl out. So she had fully submerged into the water,
Oh no.
and she ended up getting third-degree burns, and she
I was gonna say they
ultimately-
had to.
she ultimately went into a coma and ended up passing away.
That is tragic. Oh my gosh.
I think
That's awful.
I think I heard that story too, and I think they had been warned not to go that way, hadn't they? They had been warned it was dangerous to take that route.
Yeah, because there's signs throughout the trail, which actually the boys that were with her, I believe their family tried to sue the park for negligence or whatever, and the park's like, well, you're not supposed to leave the trail. There's literally signs that say don't leave the trail, and they left the trail. They were negligent. They were the ones that
Yeah,
were
no,
negligent.
there's geysers all over. Like, people always like want to go and see the main one. Like the what was it, Old Yeller or whatever that one. And
Did you say Old Yeller?
yeah, I was gonna say not that one, but like what is it called? Like it's like that one that they talk about in Old Yeller.
Oh,
I'm like, what is it
I
called?
I thought you were calling it Old Yeller.
No, there's an actual I'm telling you, there's I'm like, I swear it's called like Old Faithful, but it's in
Oh
Old
yeah,
Yeller.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like that one's like the main one that everyone wants to go to, but there is so many. The problem that people don't realize is like a lot of people get geysers and like hot springs confused,
Yeah.
because like you can go into a hot spring, those geysers, like they even smell like toxic waste. Like it does not even smell good.
And they're like green and yellow and shit too, right?
And they're bubbling. Like that stuff is bubbling and smoking.
Ooh. I like taking hot showers, but fuck that.
Yeah, no, you don't want, I'm telling you, it stinks. Like sulfur, like I mean in Florida we have sulfur all over in our parks, but you just never get used to that smell. And when it's boiling, oh no. No, thank you. I am good.
So back to you. What was your first investigation like for the paranormal?
So my first investigation, so I've done ghost tours for years, but the first time I did like an investigation, it was in April. That was the one that Gina, She Haunts, had invited me to, and it was at the History Fort Lauderdale, which is now Haunt South Florida's home base. We do a monthly event there. But my first investigation was at the King Cromartie house, and I was scared. I was definitely nervous. I did not know what to expect. I couldn't believe that I was going on an investigation. Like I grew up being obsessed with like ghost hunters and ghost adventures, and then when there was that show on YouTube that ended up going on to Hulu. What was it called? BuzzFeed Unsolved. I was like always obsessed with those. So I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. I like ordered myself like a K2 meter. Like I was like so basic. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. So we go, and the minute I like even stood outside the King Cromartie house, I felt this energy, and I was like, oh man, there's something in there, bro. Like there's something that does not like me. So that was fine. I walk in, you know, we had to go to like the New River Inn. We went to the whole house, and the Cromartie was last. So we go in there, and I could feel like, I was like, oh my gosh, there's something in here. Like I was just like, oh my gosh. This is so good. So we go upstairs and I was very nervous. Like my energy was nervous. I was just like, something's really in here. I was getting, I got an orb above a couple areas in the room, and we decide like we're gonna do an Estes in the bathroom. Now, the minute that we got up, I look at the bathroom and I could see not necessarily a full figure, but I saw like black mist is what it was like a shadow figure. And I was like, oh my God, he's just chilling right there. I was like, there's a really angry male spirit standing right there. And Gina and one of the hosts at the time, they're like, you see what? I was like, there's like a male, just like a really negative male energy like in the bathroom. And they're like, that's so interesting. Like we have a really like negative male energy, and one of the areas he hangs out with is the bathroom. And I was like, oh wow. And so I go, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I'm not gonna go into that bathroom by myself. It doesn't feel good. Like I was so nervous. Like I was like, wow, like this is not, I hadn't experienced anything so dark. And it was just so negative, and it really didn't want me in there. So we all go in there. There's like 7 of us in there. Gina ends up doing the Estes. So she's in her blindfold and her headphones.
Yeah.
I think she talked about the story. I think she talked about the story with you. If I remember, I think I watched it. Basically she's doing the Estes, and the word witch comes over.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, the word witch comes over, and there was me, and like, you know, Gina, she has her crystal business, so you know, like sometimes like we would always like, oh, you know, the witches are here. And there's another person who's now also in our team. Her name's Kimberly. She's sensitive as well, and so whenever I would feel something, she had like also felt something very similar. And so in the bathroom that night, the 2 of us both felt touched. Like I felt something come completely up my dress. Like, that was the first and last time I wore a dress to an investigation, because it just made me so uneasy. Like it was definitely like something went up my dress. Didn't like that. I've never worn a dress since, because it just did not make me feel good. And so I start talking. Like the first thing was I was trying to like not ask the questions, but it started to get stagnant. So I start asking questions, and things that you can see Gina's whole persona just change. Like started to like get really nervous, and like she kept saying that something was touching her arm, and so we were getting spike reads that were coming off of it. And so she starts hearing violent things. Like she starts hearing like kill her, like, and like referencing me. And so after 14 minutes, she's like, pulls her out. When we go downstairs, I'm holding the obelisk, and the word elemental comes over. And I whispered, and I was like, Callie, I'm a witch, like elemental. And then the words that come over is go swim. And I like went white. Like I became the ghost in the house, because I was like,
God.
And like Callie looks at me and she's like, you know, they used to drown witches. I'm like, I know they used to drown witches. Like I like say it frantically at her, like I know they used to do that. And that was like my first really big experience that first night of the investigation. I was like, oh my gosh, like this spirit knows that I'm a witch. He like knew. And it's like funny because my mom's like, are you seriously gonna go back? And like I end up with like, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the next time I went, wasn't until August. The next time I went back, it wasn't until August. And that next experience was even scarier, because we walked in and the energy was so negative. The energy was like so bad the second time I went there, to the point that we set up everything. We set up a laser grid. We set up a REM pod in the back room. In the kitchen, and in the kitchen it felt awful. Like I walked in that kitchen that night and I was like, oh my God, like my stomach really hurts, like something's not right. But I was like, but you know what, I can get through this. I'm searching my head. Like I made sure before I do the investigations, I have my own ritual. Like not like ghost hunters probably don't do this, but I have my own. Going back into my witchiness, I have a protection spell that I call upon the 4 corners. I do a protection spell. I do a little bit of Reiki for myself. Now I do every investigation, I wear my pentacle, because I used to wear, after I was wearing gold the night that this event happened, the one where I ended up getting sick. The ghost drained the REM pod and took immediately drained the REM pod. We start doing a session, doing EVPs. I start feeling ill. I mean, I'm going to be sick immediately. So I say, you know what, guys, I'm just going to take a step outside. I'm going to go outside. I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted us to be there. I didn't want to like ruin everyone's parade. I go to open this door. The door is not opening. Now the door, you have to lock it from the outside, but it's a deadbolt. So if you lock it and it's not in it, there's a deadbolt. It won't be able to be into the hole. So you have to, so there's only one way to have it unlocked. So we had it unlocked because we had people coming in and out, but the way they prevent outsiders coming in, you would latch the door, just like one of those like normal latches. So the actual door was open, but it was latched shut so no one can actually get in. I unlatch it and the door won't open. And so I was like, guys, like I just turned the knob and they're like, yeah. Vanessa's like, Christina, it's just a normal door. Gets up thinking I'm being silly and tries to open the door and it won't open. And so she's like, what in the world? So now Gina, who's sensible, who's always trying to debunk things, who's afraid of nothing, goes up, and it's the look in her face. It's that moment of panic where I realized that we are trapped. We are being withheld in this place. And I end up throwing up. I felt like immediately, like right after I turn around and it felt like someone punched me in the stomach.
Ugh.
And I just threw up. So then so those were my first two experiences like at our home base. And those were like two of my first investigations.
Wow.
And people asked me, how does that make you want to stay doing this? And I was like, it just validated that, you know, it just validated everything that I've ever felt. It just validated everything. And so now the last two times, because I've gone back since when September and in October, I've gone there with such a different attitude. Like I've gone in there and like I actually like I go in there and I like say hello to him in the kitchen, like, hi Grumpy, I'm here, how you doing? And like I really do. And the last two times it hasn't been bad. And I think it's because he knows now that I'm not afraid of him. I've seen what he can do at his worst. But he was that first night, my first investigation, I was threatened by a spirit that he wanted to kill me for being a witch.
I would have ran. That's for sure.
I know. That's what probably a normal person would do.
I have never been on any kind of like paranormal investigation, but I did an episode 2 episodes ago with Weeping Willow, Cassie from Weeping Willow in Canada, and she invited me to go out. Probably she's looking in New York, kind of like something in between us. Because I believe she's I believe she's in Ontario. I'm not 100% sure, but I've never been on an investigation. Tanya, have you ever been on an investigation?
Not a real formal one, but you know, just me and my friends out screwing around in the cemetery with the audio on our phones, but you know, nothing real.
Was it the cemetery across the street from where you are right now?
It was.
You want to know what's funny?
What?
Is that I did the same shit in that same exact cemetery with my friends.
Did you get anything?
It's what you do. I remember I almost got arrested as like a 15-year-old trying to like just hang out in a cemetery. Like this cop like was like, what are you doing? And like I remember being so scared. I was like, my parents are gonna kill me. And I was like, wait, I promise we weren't doing anything.
That's funny. So would you say those two experiences were probably the worst, like as in like negative?
I would say those are probably my two most negative.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you had asked me before I was on this paranormal team, I think like the worst thing that had ever happened, like I never, like when I lived with the ghost that I had at FSU, she wasn't like, she moved things like, and so there was times where I was terrified to move from my bed. Like, I think the first thing I ever experienced with her, she moved my chair that had no wheels, like 50 feet across the room.
Wow.
So that was horrifying. Like I physically was paralyzed in my bed and couldn't get up. And I just turned the lights off and went to sleep. It was like 9 p.m. I was horrified. I couldn't do it. I was just like, I can't get up. I'm trapped. Like I just couldn't deal with that.
All right.
But it was like, as the year, I saw her multiple times. My roommate ended up seeing her. She thought I had left for the weekend. This is like, my roommate thought I was crazy. Like, she was like, these things aren't happening. I was like, okay, it's fine. Told my RA, she's like, it's nothing, I went away for a weekend, and Saturday night, Maria like woke up and there's somebody sitting up in my bed, and it's like 3 a.m. and she's thinking I came home because there's someone sitting in my bed. Like our dorm was like a closet. It was like the oldest dorm on campus. It's been torn down now. Like, it was small. And she's like, Christina, go back to sleep. Like, you must be exhausted. You just drove 6 hours. The person goes down, lays down, and I walk in the next day at like 11 a.m. I left like early in the morning, got there really early. And my roommate's like, I walk in and she's like, why do you have your suitcase? And I was like, I just got home. And she's like, oh my God, I saw her. I was like, you saw who? And she's like, I saw her. I saw the ghost. And I was like, what? And like she would that made her a believer. And so she ended up telling my RA, and then the RA started seeing her in the bathroom. It's like the more that we started to see her, she just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger, but she wasn't malicious. So that wasn't too scary before I knew anything. So I started my witchy path at like 18. Right. American Horror Story.
Oh my goodness.
American
I love
Horror
that
Story,
show.
it started like, I think I was like 20 years old. Like, it started only like a couple years after I turned 18. And I think I was like 23 or 22 when Coven came out, the third up. So I was already very much in my witchiness. I am living for Coven. I've been to New Orleans already now 3 times. Like I love New Orleans, my favorite place. But the first time I went to New Orleans, it was Mardi Gras, but I went on a ghost tour, and I didn't know anything about New Orleans yet because Coven had not happened yet. Coven, I had already known so much about New Orleans because this happened. I knew about the stuff in New Orleans in Coven because of this experience, because I didn't know anything when I was on this ghost tour.
Yeah. My
first ever scary experience where I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm really becoming witchy the more I'm getting into my things. I fainted on a ghost tour. I hadn't been drinking. I hadn't been anything. I got somewhere. All of a sudden I felt so dizzy and I passed out. And next thing I know, my friend who was with me and the tour guide is like looking at me and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, like what happened? And he's like, do you know where you are? And I was like, New Orleans. He's like, no, do you know where you are? And I was like, no. Like the building? I was like, no, I have no idea where I am. He's like, are you a witch? And I was like, that's a weird transition, but yeah. I am. And he goes, only one other person has ever fainted at this location, and she was a witch. And it was Lala Ree Mansion.
Ooh.
That's where I fainted. I fainted right underneath the, and to this day, the other 2 times I ended up going, to this day, I could not walk on the same side as the mansion. I've always had to stay on the other side of the mansion. So like I have a picture of like the inside of the door. It's from my friend because I physically couldn't go up that close because of how negative the energy that lives there is.
Wow.
Like it's definitely haunted. They said like, I think it was like 5 months ago, I read that they were going to be making a series about it, and they were going to be opening up Lala Ree Mansion to allow people to film in it, which it hasn't been open to the public since 1932. Locals don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think anyone should go in there. Like I've only been outside of it, and the energy is awful.
Wow.
It's awful. I love New Orleans, and like I try every time I go back. I haven't been there in 8 years. I'm going in January. So we'll see if I can get to that side. But the 3 times that I went, it was so negative. Like I was like repelling it. Like my body was like, there's no way. You cannot go over there. You're gonna be sick.
Wow. So you must be the
So
same age as me.
I'm
think.
31.
Oh,
How old are
Yeah.
you?
I'll be 34 in like a couple weeks.
Over. I'll be 32 in January.
Okay. All right. So Aries, Aquarius.
Yeah, so I'm January 20th, so I am the cusp. I'm like, I was born on the 0 degree of Aquarius, according to my birth chart.
So you should be like 100% down the line of what an Aquarius is.
Yeah, but I do have some Capricorn traits. Like I'm definitely on
okay.
other like I've always been in like management roles, so I have a lot of leadership roles. I'm definitely super type A. So that's a big thing with Capricorns. They're very like structured.
Mhm.
But I'm also like with the Aquarius side, I like to detach from reality a lot. I like to be spontaneous. I've always been into traveling. Like that's the one thing, like even though I hadn't been doing the paranormal investigations for a long time, I was really excited to start the Instagram because like my witchy paranormal Instagram I've only had since August. But because of all the ghost tours I've done over the years, I have so many photos and I have
Mhm.
stories and like I used to have I haven't done something for maybe like the last 3 years, 4 years, but I used to have an annual Halloween trip where it was just dedicated to spooky stuff. Like when we went to I did Salem, Massachusetts in 2016 and it I can't believe I convinced my friends, but I was like, listen, if we're going to do things that people don't do. And they're like, what do you want to do? And like we went to the woods where Gallows Hill used to be, like at 3 a.m. Like I got a
Wow.
hotel there, like, and we went and did like Blair Witch. And the next day a local told us, don't ever do that again because you might get really hurt. But like I convinced 4 people to do this with me. So like even though I wasn't investigating, I've been doing spooky things for a decade and a half. And so I'm excited that I get to like now show people the photos I've gotten and like tell the stories that I've received because otherwise they're just sitting on my phone. I have nowhere to put them.
Right. Well, I've only been following you for like a week, but I've gone through all of your stuff, and it's pretty interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been interesting because like my Instagram I post to my Facebook.
Yep.
And my Facebook is really mostly family at this point and like
Right.
old friends, like a good way to keep in connect. And so I've gotten a lot of interesting responses. Like, so I've had the few where it's like, aren't you like afraid? Like, aren't you afraid you're gonna bring something home? Like I get those.
Right.
But then like the
Naturally.
majority is, oh my gosh, it's so cool that you're doing this. I love hearing your stories. I didn't know that you've experienced this. And I was like, well, you don't want people looking at you like you have 12 heads because you see ghosts. Like it's not dinner conversation for everyone.
I've seen ghosts almost my entire life.
That's
Tanya?
awesome.
Yes, sir. Do you remember when we lived in Biddeford when Jenna and I thought we saw you?
Saw me?
Yeah.
I don't remember, no.
Oh, maybe we didn't tell you. But we thought that we both actually thought we saw you. So I was in my bedroom and Jenna was our stepsister at the time. She was in the living room and my bedroom door was open and I thought I saw you out of the corner of my eye walk past my bedroom door.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard your footsteps too. And I just saw a figure with dark hair walk by. And then Jenna came in my bedroom a couple of seconds later and she was like, did you just see somebody go out in the living room? And I was like, yeah, Kevin just went by. And she's like, well, Kevin's not out there. And then we heard footsteps going down the hallway and into the bathroom. And then we heard the bathroom door close because this was at the time that they were doing renovations on the bathroom. So they had just put a new bathroom door on, and it made like this very specific like squeaking noise.
Uh-huh.
So we heard the bathroom door closed, and then we looked down the hallway from my bedroom, and the bathroom door was actually wide open. And so that was kind of creepy.
That was that was the place where my bedroom was across from the bathroom, right?
From the bathroom.
Yeah, that
And
apartment was
so-
creepy as shit. Anyway,
Yeah,
I had a peeping Tom in that bathroom, bro.
not surprised.
I got out. I don't what 12 years old. I got out of the shower and some guy had his face pressed up against the window.
Oh my gosh, how creepy.
I thought
Talk
I
about
thought
creepy in
somebody put a
general.
pumpkin in the window because it looked orange to me. And I'm looking at it
Oh
and I'm
my
like, what the hell? And then I hit the freaking window because it's all fog. The guy he couldn't
Yeah.
see. He could tell something was moving, but he couldn't see anything because it was all fucking
Fog,
fogged
everything,
up.
yeah.
But I tapped on the window and it sat there for a second. So it was like boop. And then his face
Oh.
was like, and then it slowly backed up and I was like, oh my god, it's fucking moving, and I fucking hit.
Who needs ghosts when you have that? Like,
Right.
oh my god.
And then I hear his footsteps walk across the freaking porch back to his apartment because his apartment was next door.
Oh my gosh, that's
Oh, wow.
horrifying. Like seriously, that's those it's stories like that where I tell people that sometimes the living is way more scarier than the dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's like something like Callie in our group, she will be like, there is plenty more in life that is scarier than me going into some haunted house.
That's true. She's not wrong.
Oh yeah. Like I channel her energy now. Like she walks in like she owns the place, and that's who I
Good.
always say I channel my inner Callie like when I go into the Camaraderie house. But yeah, I mean, I will say like when I'm done, like when I leave, going back to like my white witchiness,
Yep.
because there are, I do believe that, entities can latch on. I do cleanse, like just like how I do a protection spell before, I do a cleansing ritual at night. It doesn't matter how late I am coming home, because sometimes like I get home at like 3 in the morning because I live far from
Mhm.
these locations, and I still make sure that I do a shower cleanse, I do my regular aura cleanse, and I just make sure that I go to sleep with peace of mind that I feel good and that nothing has come home with me.
So
Because I don't rule out any of that stuff. Like I do think that there's always risk in anything. So
right. So do you meditate a lot?
I do.
So what's your
I try to-
meditating process like?
It depends on the day. Like it depends on like time and day. But like in the mornings, I try to do a 10-minute right when I wake up. And the meditations in the morning is really to ground myself. So I personally I use garnet and black tourmaline. Those are my two main. I like to use those as a combo to help ground me. And I basically just kind of try to start my day in a positive mindset. I try to, remove anything that was from yesterday, not worry about it. And I just center myself. I get my day started. I do notice if I don't have the time to center in the morning, I'm a little bit thrown off. And so if I don't have time to center in the morning, typically I have like a 30-minute drive in the morning to work. I'll usually try to ground myself, like where I'll do like certain kinds of sessions where I imagine myself just like deep, like I can't move, like I feel like my legs are, even like when I'm in the car, like I just kind of like root my legs, and I just kind of vision that like there's nothing that can move me, there's nothing that can break me, anything, there's nothing I can't get through. When I do it at night, I try to set intention. I try to, if I had a bad day, if something happened where it really shook me and I could have handled it better, I will reflect. I feel like my nighttime meditation is more of a reflection. And that kind of, it's good to have both. Like when people talk about manifesting, their realities and, You know,
Sure.
I think that to manifest, you also have to release. And so like one thing as like, since we go into my witchiness, I was saying earlier, I do rituals. I do full moon rituals and new moon rituals. A lot of people only focus on the full moon, but the full moons are about releasing. It's about letting go what has happened during this cycle, this moon cycle, and what you want to change in the next cycle, because you get a full moon every month. With the new moon, that's really about manifesting and really about bringing things in. And so that's when I do my manifesting. So when it comes, like, it's kind of the same thing with my meditation. In the morning, it's like, I'm grateful for the day. I'm thankful. I want to bring in positivity, new beginnings, good intentions. At night, it's releasing the bad that might have happened. What do you want to change? What could you do better? And it really goes with that night and day aspect. So that's a lot with my meditations. Like, everyone's meditation is different. Some people can meditate for hours. I used to do like really long meditations. Like when I'm on my ritual days, I would do like a 30-minute one and really go in and reflect. But like 10 minutes, like just 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, it can make all the difference. Even with health, meditation helps with like reducing stress. So
Right.
if you know that you have like a stressful job, starting your day with meditation can change your whole morning.
Right. I've been on kind of like a spiritual journey for the past 2 years after a rough breakup and whatnot. So like I've done inner work where I'm constantly looking within myself and stuff. And meditation, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I cannot meditate for more than 5 to 10 minutes.
It's the ADHD, man, because it's the same with me. I cannot meditate. I can't focus long enough to meditate.
Right.
Yeah, and some people can't. Like, then that, there's nothing wrong with you. That just might not be your method that you're supposed to. Like, I also journal. Like, I necessarily, like, I can do a longer meditation, but I don't feel it's necessary. I think 10 minutes is good for me. Sometimes I really need to like release stuff. So sometimes I will physically write, just like journal for days, and then I'll burn it and just release it. Sometimes I'll leave it in the book, but sometimes if I really want, I have to just get it out and just release it. I'll just burn it. That's another method. Like that, if meditation doesn't work for you, don't do it. There's other routes.
Right.
There's other ways to ground yourself.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I actually, when I was a teenager, I started for like a short period of time. It's not something that I kept up with, but like at the end of the day, I started like writing down everything that had pissed me off throughout the day. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and then I would burn it. And it actually did make me feel better to just burn everything that had upset me throughout the day. It's a weird thing that it doesn't sound like it would be that helpful, but it did help a lot. It was like physically getting rid of it helped to mentally get rid of it.
Yeah, like that was like you physically put it down on paper, got it out, and like vocalized how it made you feel. And then like when it goes back, when we talk about like the different elements, fire, it helps release. That physically releases things. So when you burn it, you're releasing it into the air and you're just letting it be. It's now ash. It can't hurt you. It's gone. That's like I tell people, when water signs, Pisces, and this could be for anyone. Some people, not only your sun sign matters when it comes to your birth chart, but like there's
Your
also
moon
your
and your
moon,
rising.
Yeah, like there's other aspects that really reflect your personality. Water signs, if you have placements in Pisces, Scorpio, I'm like blanking on the last one. What I was like,
What for water?
Yeah, I'm like actually
Aries.
blanking.
Aries is
No,
water.
that's fire.
No. Oh fuck, you're right.
I'm like blanking. I was like, I literally live my life this way. I'm like, I can't think right now. Like, Cancer.
Yep, you're right. I blanked on
I'm
that
like,
too.
what is it? I'm like, okay. When you have water signs,
Yep.
a lot of them, the best way to resolve any kind of stress is for them to just like throw themselves in the water. Like a great way to resolve so much stress. Like I have a Pisces moon. So my Pisces sign deals with all of my emotions. That's what the moon deals with. So sometimes if I'm like really stressed out, my boyfriend will be like, go hop in the shower. And I'm like, I don't want to hop in the shower. Just go hop in the shower. And it really just the moment it just all of a sudden you just feel like everything's melting off of you. Everything's just washing away. You visualize it going into the ground, into the drain, and now it's gone. It physically has been washed off your body and you don't have to worry about it anymore. That's like the same thing. I never understood why some people would like feel so good after they stood it out like in the the rain, but like the wind, that's like another way to cleanse yourself. If you need to like just be out, you like put your like arms and legs spread out and you just let the wind go through you for like 5 minutes, and it's supposed to help cleanse. So it really, if one thing doesn't work for you, you try something else, even if it seems silly to someone else because they've never done it before. That's just they're just being judgy. Like no one can tell you what's right or wrong with your past.
That's true. Both me and my sister, we're both fire signs. So
really?
Yeah. She's a Leo, I'm a Sagittarius.
Very cool.
My moon is Gemini and my rising is Leo.
Oh, very cool. I have a Leo rising as well. That's probably why you felt such a release, Tanya, being a Leo, you working with fire, just like how like with the water signs with water, that might be exactly how you should get rid of your stress or things that anger you, is physically lighting them on fire and letting them go.
Yeah, I was thinking that as you were talking, I was like, wow, that actually, because I don't know a lot about astrology and everything. I know my sign and that it's, a fire sign. But I don't know much else about astrology. So while you were talking, I was like, damn, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't focus.
You also have a lot of the attributes from a Leo as well. Like you're like when you think of what a Leo is, it's you. In my opinion, from my aspect, from my perspective anyway. Everybody has a different perspective, but from what I see, you're 100% Leo.
Bitchy and bossy.
Very assertive.
I call it main character syndrome.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, no, I have a Leo rising, and so that's like same with you, Kevin. Like that also, we have those aspects. Like your sun sign is what you're born under. Your moon sign is like how you handle emotions, and your rising sign is what you show to the world. So you might not be born a Leo, but you show the world that you like you probably like if you're someone who's doing a podcast, you can put yourself out there. Like that's very Leo like. But you also have Sag, so like that's 2 fire, and then you said Gemini.
I don't know anything about Gemini. I'm not like 100% into everything about astrology, but I know like the basics, and I've been slowly trying to learn stuff through this like process of spirituality and trying to find myself and trying to let go of things from my past, and which is also where I've done therapy, and that's meditation has come out of that. And so and I started looking into astrology, I think so last year was when I really started actually kind of paying attention to it, and that's how last year was when I found out my moon and my rising.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't focus too much like on horoscopes necessarily, but there are definitely like there's some science behind the there's some truth behind.
Yeah, I feel like horoscopes are kind of like guesswork, just based off of your personality.
Anyone can write a horoscope,
right?
Like I don't focus too much on those. But when it comes down to the birth chart, if you understand the placements and the houses, and you understand, the different attributes of each sign, you can really understand. So like one thing, so almost everyone has Capricorn somewhere in their chart. I have Capricorn in 4 placements, one of them being Mercury. Mercury deals with your communication sector. Having Capricorn in your communication sector can be very troubling. Because when you have Capricorn in your chart, that means that area where you have Capricorn in your chart that will probably be where your life lessons will be lining up, things that you will have to learn over time. So I'm also in therapy. This is my 5th round of being in therapy in my life. And I've had to do anger management. I've had a hard time communicating myself because my anger and my anxiety would cause me to like not be able to communicate with people without yelling. And so that was just so not effective. So that was an attribute that I continuously work on. Communication is not easy, but that was one of the first things that when I was on my path, it was like the universe was like, no, this isn't going to work. You need to straighten out your Mercury. You need to straighten out your communication. Because if you're going to be doing this, if you're going to be a healer, and you're going to be doing this kind of work, you can't have this explosive energy. It was chaotic. And this is like, you're thinking, this is about 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, I was starting where I was like, okay, I'm really going to be, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to do all these things. If you're going to try and heal other people and you're going to try to help other people heal different things, you have to start in home base. And that was one of the biggest things, was fixing my communication sector and fixing my anger and being able to communicate without thinking people were judging me or being unheard or just simply being wrong. And it took so much time, but it was something that it had to be nipped in the butt. Now I have Capricorn in 2 other sectors, my Saturn and Uranus, and typically those are down by the year that you're born. They deal more with like societal trends.
Yep.
Look what we've been dealing with for the last 6 years. Not even the economy, but the way society runs and thinks.
It's
different
drastic.
things have been major changes, like breaking societal norms.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to see Capricorn in those areas for a lot of people, especially our age, that millennial area of people. We have Capricorn in your chart. You have Capricorn in Saturn and Uranus because the cutoff is like after my year and you're a little bit older than me. So like I already know you have Capricorn at least twice. And so that's part of it. Like one thing that our generation has to deal with is we're learning to break away from norms, these norms that Gen X has put on us. And a lot of people our age are like breaking out of things that they've never even were able to discuss or talk about. And like that's why, like, when it comes to my Heal with Christina, I have a lot of baby witches. I have a lot of people who are younger who are just trying to find where they fit in. And so I have people who are Christian witches. I've talked about how I had come from the Catholic religion. And so people are like, I still choose Jesus as my number one. And I'm like, that's fine. You could be a witch. Go for it. But like a lot of people our age, we're breaking this idea. We're breaking a lot of ideas that go against what was known before. And Gen Z is just flowing with it. Like the generation below us, they're just going. But they don't have Capricorn in their norm. Like they don't have it in their, they have Capricorn maybe somewhere else. But when it comes to their societal areas, they've all been moved to Aquarius. So of course they're living, they're not scared of what's happening. They're just able to go with the flow and be what they want to be and, tell, the boomer generation or the Gen X generation, no, we're going to be like this. We're going to do things like this. We're not going to conform to the realities that you want to live in.
Right.
And and so like those aspects, I believe they do make sense when it comes to charts. Like when you read the birth charts, I do think those things hold up true. It just depends. But I wouldn't base my whole life around it. I think that it's good to help you, but I wouldn't base my whole life around astrology. It's just another tool, as I like to say.
So with the healer part, do you do like smudging?
I do smudging. I don't always use sage though. I use sage for certain things. Like if I'm trying to banish like really negative feelings or things like that, I'll use sage. I'll use different kinds of herbs. Like I'll use rosemary bundles. I'll use bay leaf bundles. I feel like they do just as much as like for smudging.
Yep.
When it comes, my main healer route that I use, I'm a Reiki healer. So Reiki is an energy healing technique that was founded in Japan in the 1920s. And basically, with my hands, I never touch anyone, but really about 6 inches above, I hover around people and I'm able to move energy through the body.
Okay.
My main thing that I do is chakra balancing. It's a 30-minute session, and if you've never had one, you're moving energy out of stagnant areas. One time I did my best friend, and I didn't know that he stored his stress in his jaw. I was doing Reiki around his head and doing it all, in this area at first, and my hands were burning when I was on his cheeks. And so I had to pull, when I was done, because I was I had to physically wipe my hands off because I was my hands were on fire. And so he goes, anything? I was like, yeah. I was like, do you clench your jaw or grind your teeth? And do you store he goes, when I'm very stressed, I have to clench my jaw. I physically hold it in place. And I was like, I felt it. I was like, you store all of your stress there. I was like, and it's funny because when you look at him, I've never seen him very stressed. I've known him for 17 years. He's always cool, calm, and he's always collected. You would never know when he's stressed. So to know that he's clenching his jaw that hard, when I literally, when he said he had felt a pop when I was doing that area, he felt a pop because he was storing so much stress just in his jaw. And so that was one thing, we moved the energy out of that. So that is my main, I went through a 2-day spiritual attunement through a Reiki master teacher who has a lineage that dates all the way back to ancient Egyptian. And so I had to do an actual attunement to be able to do this healing. And so that's my biggest, that's my main healer route. And I bring, since I'm a crystal master as well, on a level 3 level, I bring crystals into my practice, but that's not needed. Again, crystals is another tool. Same thing when people they talk about some people don't need tarot cards to read you your future. Some people can just, they have the all-seeing eye, or they're prophets. Some people use they have that, and then they also use tarot. Tarot is just another tool. So I always say I'm a divination witch because I like tools, but they're not necessary. When I do my Reiki, I don't need crystals, but I like having crystals because sometimes some people need that extra grounding. Sometimes I can't get that person to they can't meditate. So I'll put a black tourmaline, in their hand, or I'll have them hold a red stone to ground them just a little bit more because their mind won't shut off. If I know their mind won't shut off, I'll start there, and I'll start with kind of moving energy around in their mind and just trying to clear out any stress. And so at least they can relax, and then I'll continue with the rest of their body. And then and it only takes about 30 minutes when I do the chakra, but I can the one thing is when you can feel when you're balanced out. Sometimes some people will be so focused on activating my third eye. I want my third eye to be open.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot. Some people I'll be, they're like, oh yeah, I really need my chakras balanced. Their third eye will be beaming. It will be out to here. It will be so far out, 12 inches. But then because they have low self-esteem, or they're going through a breakup that they're not talking about with people, their heart chakra might be 6 inches, or their sacral might be nothing. And so that's when you see this, if you were to look at someone's meridian and you have your chakras, your third eye is here, but your heart is here. Your sacral's here, it's all unbalanced. So you want to get everything just to one level.
Right.
And so that's a big thing that I do, mainly chakra healing with the Reiki. I do home clearings, I do cleanses, but that's probably the gist of my healer aspect. I make crystal healing jewelry. So that's where if you're looking for certain items, that's what my Etsy is for. So I've got different bracelets and rings and necklaces, and I like crystal carvings. I don't just having a crystal. I like to have cute things. So I just ordered some stuff for Christmas. So I just ordered gnomes. I ordered Christmas crystal Christmas trees, Christmas snowmans. For Halloween, I had pumpkins that had witch hats on them and jack-o'-lanterns, and they're all made out of different gemstones. So like that's I don't like to just have like I'll get points and like palm stones every once in a while, but I like the crystal carvings. And so that's another thing. I'll get a lot of consultations from people who are like, what can I use for grief, or what can I use to help with self-esteem? And I'll recommend a crystal, and if they like something in my shop, they can get it from me or get from somewhere else. But that's mostly the healer aspect I work with. Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Thanks.
So I think like for me to where my stress is, I have a few different spots. It's like my neck and the hell is this called? My traps.
Yeah, like here.
Yeah, and it goes across my back, and a lot of times I'll get like super tension headaches out of nowhere just because I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
And then I also wear it on my hips.
Oh.
So
yeah, I carry a lot of it in my knees. I
Your
carry
knees?
a lot of stress in my knees. Yeah.
yeah, I noticed once I started all this, like with the therapy and just trying to look within myself, I noticed when I go to the gym, not all the time, but it's been a few times, and the first time I kind of got embarrassed by it, but I was running on the treadmill, and I was just running. Probably I had been running for 5 minutes, pretty steadily, and I just started crying out of nowhere.
Wow.
So like something unlocked in my hips, and I just started
Yeah.
literally bawling, like I was like I don't know,
Yeah,
like
no,
my
you
dog died
definitely
or something.
unlocked something. Yeah.
So, and I literally had to leave because I was embarrassed. So, but the
No, I
second
think
time I
that-
cried, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, you definitely unlock something, but that's good. As you continue with this, you might also notice certain things don't agree with you anymore. So, I was a heavy drinker for like 10 years. That was one thing that was always preventing, that always blocked my sacral for a really long time. I never understood why I couldn't activate certain things in my path.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was because I was blocking my sacral heavily with alcohol. Do you know so like I've been heavy with the path the last 5 years, like the healer side, as I have been getting more honest with myself and being open to take on those things when they happen. I can't even really drink anymore. And same thing with meat, like chicken. We eat chicken all the time, but there's so many times that it doesn't agree with me. Same with like red meat. Like this year, the meat has kind of started pretty heavily to like not agree with me, but like it's because it's low vibrational items. When you start putting them into your body, they start rejecting. So the more you get into your spiritual path, you might notice that certain things, like as you're releasing certain things, other things might also, like, you might not even be able to bring them back into you.
Right. I've noticed recently that I can taste the difference between store like big corporate stores, big supermarket store meat, and a local butcher.
Yeah.
I can taste the difference.
Yeah.
And I don't like the store.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm telling you, you will start to notice, and like, some people, if you tell some people, they're like, you're just being crazy, but it's for real. Like the more you start changing your mindset, the more your body's going to be craving better things. Like I always talk about how, like, I was just talking about somebody the other day. I was like, I drink so much water and I just don't feel like I'm getting, I just don't feel like it's quenching my thirst. And he's like, well, are you drinking like bottled water? I'm like, yeah, like I'm drinking like spring water. And he's like, a lot of those bottled spring waters, they don't have nutrients in them. Like they're being filtered. And so the minerals are, I was like, what? Like I didn't even think of that. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, there's no minerals. So like in a lot of those bottled waters, you're probably thirsty because you're not getting anything. And I was like, and so like now I've been like trying to buy electrolyte water because I was like, oh my gosh, this might be why I don't feel right all the time. Like I'm just drinking bland water. Like water's bland in general, but like just nothing, like just drinking absolute nothing.
Yeah. I've also noticed that it's become easier for me to let people go. Like just if there's something that I don't agree with or whatever, like I'm not gonna deal with you anymore.
Yeah.
So
And that's a hard lesson. I had that lesson in 2020 and 2021 with two relationships that were like 20-year relationships, and it was not easy. But
yeah,
you realize that when you start doing this path, if it's not good for you, if it's not supposed to be part of your life anymore, if it's not supposed to be anything that defines you, it will be taken from you. The universe will be like, it's time. We must move on. Like, this is not part of you anymore.
That's what it felt. That's definitely what it felt like, for sure.
Oh yeah, you're definitely going through a spiritual journey, which is fun. It's exciting. It can only make you better and stronger in my mind. But there are hard aspects to it. It's definitely not the easiest.
Yeah. So, do you have that pentacle on you right now?
I have it. Yes, hold on. I think I have it over here. I had to think where I took it off because I wore it on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Sterling silver, points up. It's highly protective. My boyfriend, he always tells me, he's like, that thing's got crazy energy. And I was like, it does. I was like, it's very protective. I seriously wear it every time now, wherever I go. There was one instance though. We went to, and by we, I mean me, Gina, and Callie. We went to the Devil's Tree, as it's called.
Devil's Tree?
The Devil's Tree. That location, I was about to, it was actually closer to where I live. It's in Port St. Lucie, and it stands in the middle of like a national park, right next to like a normal neighborhood. Well, apparently this tree is called the Devil's Tree because a serial killer murdered and tortured like 30-something women there.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And over the years, satanic, Satanists have come and done rituals, and so the whole area is not great. It's not great.
No.
So we decide we're gonna go out there and check it out before dark because since it's a national park, it closes at 8 p.m. So you have to be out before dusk. So that was the one good thing. When I was about to leave the house, I like got a download. Like I like heard like, not your pentacle. And I was like, not my pentacle. And so I was like, okay. So I shut the door. I come back into my room and I was like, not my pentacle. And so I don't know what made me, so like my grandmother, all my grandparents have passed on at this point, but my grandmother on my mom's side, after she died, all of her sisters, all my aunts were like, oh my God, your grandmother was a witch and your great grandmother was a witch too. And I was like, oh, so glad everyone's telling me this now. Thanks. Great. Well, I had one of her crosses. Like I had one of this very gothic like cross. And my mom's like, that thing's mostly costume jewelry. I was like, I really like it. And she's like, your grandmother really liked it too. She actually wore it a lot. So I was like, okay. So now I haven't worn a cross in a very long time. It's not typically what I choose.
Right.
Well, I walk into my room and it's like the cross was like staring at me. And I was like, okay. And so I wear the cross instead. And the minute I get into, we first, it took us an hour to find the tree. It was very hard to find the tree. The energy of the of like this area was really odd. Like it didn't feel good. It didn't feel bad, but it's just really odd. and then we made a wrong turn. And so I was like, no, we have to go back. And there was a tree, and like there was like the tree, like it like made like a cross.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, and I was like, for some reason that made me feel like there was validation that like I should be wearing that cross. I haven't had that feeling to wear it for any of my other events, but I felt so much better having that cross because I didn't do an Estes that session, but Gina and Callie both did Estises, and they both had the same experience where they heard like 15 different female voices. Like they were all different and they were screaming.
Oh,
And so I just felt awful. Then I posted a photo. So it's the pinned photo on my post on my Instagram.
yeah.
And when I first started my Instagram, that was the first thing I posted. And one of my followers, who now is like a dedicated follower who like comments on everything, and I talk with him and stuff like that, he was like, do you see the man behind you? Do you see the man with the knife behind you? And I couldn't at first, like I couldn't see him. And then I'm looking, I go ahead and I pulled the photo up on my computer, and I was like, there's a little, I started to see like, I was like, so that was a little scary.
Wow.
So I felt a lot better having that. I still don't know why the universe was telling me don't bring your pentacle. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because like, you know, in the satanic rituals, you know, a lot of them use like the upside down star of the pentacle instead of it being upright, they use the upside. So I don't know if maybe that, but I like distinctively was like, don't bring it, wear your cross. And I wore the cross. I did a heavy cleanse after that because I felt dirty after that one. We haven't gone back to the Devil's Tree, but it definitely, there was some, it was like dark. Like I told Kat, because Callie's like, we should bring the Ouija board here. And I was like, no. Me and Gina both said absolutely not. We both.
I don't know. First of
I was
all,
like, no.
yeah, first of all, I wouldn't fuck with a Ouija board. Second of all, I wouldn't fuck with a Ouija board there.
Yeah, no. So I don't believe in bringing Ouija boards into the home. I don't have my own Ouija board. Callie just bought, so Callie growing up, her mom used to bring her into, they used to do Ouija board. That was part of it was just something that she did growing up. So she's not afraid of Ouija boards. That's part of her part. And she just got herself a really nice one, a vintage one from like the early 1900s. And so that's her biggest thing, is like, she really wants to use this Ouija board. And I'm super okay with her using her Ouija board. At this point, I'm not bringing it into my house. We just, we use dowsing rods. I understand using it on a paranormal level. I do believe it is a portal. There are reasons why I won't bring one into my house. There are reasons why I'm scared of them.
Yeah.
There are reasons why I am afraid. Me and Gina both looked at her like, there is something dark here. Like there was women tortured at that tree. And so but I felt so much better with that was the one time I was like, my spirit guides was like, not your pentacle, not tonight. And I said, okay. That's the one thing I try to listen. Like if I get a download, like if I get that gut feeling, like something's not right. Okay. I hear you. Like after I threw up the night at the Cromartie house, I went back to get my things, and I should have just told someone to grab them, because the minute I walked back in there, it was kind of like, what are you doing back in here? Get out of the house. And so I was like, I feel it. I'm grabbing my things and I'm getting out. And I called it a night on that house. You have to like trust. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's one thing to dive into this stuff, but you have to, like, if you don't feel comfortable, if someone in your group doesn't feel comfortable, you pull out.
Right.
You stop. Because there's a risk. Like I said, there's always a risk.
There's how do you say it? It's there's a reaction to every action.
Yes.
So, and like spirits and entities are energy, so like they're reacting to your energy in your presence. So if you're already a negative person, they're gonna act, I feel like they act negatively as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For
And I
sure.
think
But
that
obviously with your like you are extremely positive and very pleasant to talk to. So
Aw.
the fact that you had such a two negative experiences when you first started is kind of blows my mind a little bit. But
yeah.
and it's
I think a lot of
scary.
it is because they try to scare you.
True,
Like when now
right.
that we've hosted our own events and like been the person on the other side, we'll be like doing an Estes and like the first words will be like evil or devil. And it's like, and we'll be like, there's nothing evil here. Stop trying to scare these people. and like so like they do try to mess with you. Like some people they really do try to mess. Especially if there is someone who's scared or if there's like children. Like we had children on, and so like when I was doing the Estes this past weekend, I was just getting myself set up. I didn't know any of the people. I wasn't there for the introduction, so I didn't know anyone's name. And literally the minute I turned it on, it said, "Hi, Matthew." And after the session, I was like, it did tell me, "Hi, Matthew." And the kid was like, "That's my name." And it was like the youngest kid in the room. His name was Matthew. And I was like, oh, they know. They see, they like, it's like they do make themselves aware. But I'm hoping, I think the ghosts at our home base is growing. We're growing on them because we're not going anywhere. I think that it's realized at this point it's going to see us at least once a month.
Nice. Nice. I enjoy watching all the little videos you guys do together. Because I have Gina on TikTok, so I see a lot of it.
Yeah, no, Gina is great. She really is. She makes hilarious videos. She's very good at making reels. I think I've gotten pretty good, but like she really is so good at social media. We always are just like, "You're so good, Gina. We love you."
So when I talked with her, she had said that her husband is a skeptic, but he's very supportive. So I was just curious, where you had just said your boyfriend was talking about energies with you. I was curious on how, like, where he sits on this playing field with you. Like, is he a witch
He's not a witch.
Okay.
He's a believer. I think he definitely believes in energies, and I think he believes in entities because I know that he does. But he's okay with not coming to the events. Like it's my thing. I do it with the girls. I have my team, and he's like, "I love that for you. Don't be part of it." But like there was a session, I think it was we did just like a practice run in October, like October 15th. We just did a 2-hour practice run, nothing crazy. And I got home late and I was really tired. I had work in the morning. And since we really didn't do a lot of investigating, I didn't think it was super necessary to do a cleanse. So I don't do a cleanse. I was like, I'll just shower in the morning and it'll be fine. So that's what I did. I got up in the morning, showered. After this event, or like after that night, I had uncontrollable itching for 13 days all over my body, and I didn't know what it was. It stopped like maybe now 6 days ago, but I didn't know what it was. I had a rash on my chest. I asked Callie about it. She had a rash, and it's like we both went to that, and I was like, "Did you end up having this like weird scratch?" She's like, "No, but I did have a rash," and it was like in the same area. And he did not tell me this till I was at the Stevie Nicks concert on Friday. I saw the White Witch herself. And I was with 2 of my friends. And so they were like, "Oh my gosh, how did you get into this?" I hadn't seen them in about a year. So they're talking to me, and he goes, "Yeah, well, don't let her fool you. One time she didn't do a cleanse, and my brother was staying at the house because his brother's dating my sister. And he said that he walked out of, and there was an entity standing outside of her room." And I looked at him in disbelief. I was like, you knew about this for 10 days and you haven't told me that your brother saw an entity standing outside of my room. You've just let me live my life, not knowing like I should cleanse. Now I end up doing a cleanse, like the itching wasn't going away, so I end up cleansing my whole house.
Yeah.
Like my whole cleanse, and it went away, and like the itching went away, and all this stuff. And I'm like looking at him in disbelief on Friday, and I'm like, all these days, it's been like a week and a half. Didn't tell me. He goes, well, it just never came up, and I was like, it didn't come up.
Damn
so,
you and your
like,
communication skills.
Literally, I was like, it didn't come up. And so now on Sunday we had the event, and he's like, all right, babe, have a great one. Don't forget, make sure you shower before you go to sleep. And I was like, don't worry, I will never make the mistake ever again. So he doesn't go, but he's a believer, because he made sure when I got home, he goes, are you home? I said, yeah. He goes, did you shower? I go, yes. So he was frightened for my well-being. He's just like telling, he goes, oh yeah, no, there's like an entity standing out her door. And I was like,
huh.
Oh. And like for me, like my grandmother like hangs out in my living room fairly often. Like I see her in my living room all the time. So it's not like it's not weird for me to see ghosts in the house. I've seen a complete orange tabby cat, where we have 3 cats in my house. They're all gray. So to see an orange tabby cat just sitting in, like, that was the first thing. Like I didn't used to see like full-blown spirits. I saw ghost cats everywhere. They would just disappear. So like I've seen things in the house, but when he told me that, I was really shook. I was like, there was an entity in my house.
Yeah.
I must have banished it with my smudging, because I haven't felt anything, but I literally, like, I was in disbelief that he just dropped that out. And I was like, great. Oh, he does not join. But I do think that like if we went on like we've only been together for 10 months, so we haven't really done a lot of traveling, but if I asked him to do a ghost tour, I think he would do a ghost tour. I think he would be okay with that.
Nice. He sounds like like he's very supportive of you. It sounds like it'd be like it's good. He's good for you.
Oh yeah, no.
That's what it sounds like.
I had a bad breakup. Like when you said that, I had a bad breakup after a toxic person last year. I was with them for 2.5 years, and that really did. It pushed me into like a second spiritual journey after that breakup. And I wasn't expecting, his name's Jordan. I wasn't expecting for Jordan to come into my world in January. That was like the last thing I thought was going to happen right after the new year. He is so supportive. He supports everything that I do. Like I tried to give him a crystal one time, and he's like, keep your crystal. He's like, I love that for you. I don't need it. He's like, you keep your crystals. One day when we have a house, you could decorate the whole house with crystals. I don't need it though. So like we're different, but he lets, I told him that I was dressing up as Harley Quinn for the day at work, and 2 days later, he's like, just so you know, I bought a Joker costume. Didn't even ask him. He just went ahead and did it. And so he does. He supports all my quirks and all the things I like to do. Even if he's not always there, he always asks, like, like he texted me, he's like, hope your podcast is going well. So he's
awesome.
Very supportive. I'm very lucky to have him.
I love that for you.
Thanks.
That's awesome to hear. My sister actually just got herself into a relationship with a pretty good person after some rough waters there. And she's over there rolling her eyes.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, I was in some rough waters. I definitely understand.
So
I was thinking while you were talking, when you're doing like the rituals, like the cleansing rituals, how does it, like when you were in that toxic relationship, affect like you trying to cleanse, or does it affect you at all when you're trying to do those rituals?
No, it's super did. So when I was in that relationship, so I was in it from 2019 till like April 2019 to February of 2021. And so I had started my Etsy in 2020. I had just became a Reiki healer, but my ex was not for this. So like he was okay with the crystal jewelry and the things like that, but the rituals were really like, I kind of kept it more to myself. That was a big problem. Like I lost myself in that relationship. That was really a big thing because I couldn't be myself. If there would have been no way that I would have been able to be doing these paranormal investigations. Like my ex would have never been for it. It would have never even been a thing. So I do think about like that relationship all the time because like I was really hindering myself. Like I wouldn't have grown and gotten to this point if I didn't leave that relationship because he would have never let me. His family was so Catholic, and so they condemned. Like I have a witch tattoo on my arm. I have a witch. He one time said, like within like my first like 9 months of dating him, like I wish that I could just cut the witch tattoo off your arm. And I stayed with him for another 1.5 years, and I don't even know how I allowed that to happen to myself. Like I don't even know. And so like, yeah, no, it definitely affected it. I was not doing what I do now to the extent. Which now I'm so much happier doing what I'm doing to this extent.
No, but I
You
feel
look
when
happy
talk
just looking
about-
at you.
Yeah, I mean, you really do. It was really fun to watch your face light up when you were talking about Jordan. You said his name was?
Yeah, Jordan.
Yeah, it was fun to watch you talk about him. But I understand what you mean when you're talking about, you know, I don't know how I stayed after all that, because I mean, like Kevin said, I was in the same situation. So yeah, don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, and that's why, you know, I tell people, you know, I've told some of the, you know, I'm a very independent, strong person, but I allowed myself to get into a really, really scary place of submission, to the points that I had friends that were just like, what are you doing? Like, you're not even yourself. And so like, I think about it because now you're coming on like, you know, we're almost to 2 years since that breakup. That breakup was February of 2021. So much, I mean, I was in a complete hermit mode this time last year. I was super into that spiritual awakening, figuring out, you know, going through therapy, figuring out how did I get to this point? Like, how did I love? And you just don't know, because eventually you're codependent, or you're comfortable. You don't want to leave, but leaving was so scary because I was so afraid to be alone. I had just turned 30 and I was like, I really have to start over. I was in 4, but I had 8 weddings last year. So not only do I have to go through this breakup, within 2 weeks after the breakup was my first wedding of my wedding season. This year, I had my sister's wedding in February, and then I had 2 more weddings, and I have 3 more next year. So like, I also had to figure out how to be okay with myself. So at the same time as like, you're trying to create this business and be a healer and be this person, but you're also healing yourself from this breakup and removing all this damage that you've done and allowed to happen to you. I really, like, people ask me all the time, like, and I just say it feels like a bad fever dream. Like, I have no idea how I allowed myself, but I'm so happy I broke out of it, because I'm just like, to see what this year even looked like, I can't believe what I've been doing. Like, I can't even believe like these are my hobbies now. So I am happy. I'm thankful, but I don't. And so I tell, even the strongest of people can get into the most toxic relationships.
Yep.
Like,
It's true. And it does feel
really
like coming out of a fog, of a cloud, because I spent like a year, we were together for 3 years, and I spent a year in bed. Like, I got out of bed to go to work, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So it does feel like coming out of a fog. So I
like
totally
that is the
understand what
only
you
way
mean.
I could describe it, is coming out of a fog, because like, it's just like it's like everything's been lifted, and now you see everything for what it is.
Yeah, it's a veil coming off that you weren't able to see while you were in the situation.
Right.
Or you could see, but you didn't want to see it for what it was.
Right. For sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy that you got out of it too, because like, it could be like a survivor situation for some people. for real.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes, I had to go move her.
Yes, I called Kevin, and I called him up one night and said, you gotta come get me. I live 3 hours away. I was like, you gotta come help me, bring me home. That was the only way. Because I live, like I said, I live 3 hours away, so I was alone. I didn't have family up there, so made him come get me.
Well, that's so good. I'm so glad that you were able to be there, Kevin. I was telling him I have 3 younger sisters. So when he was like, oh, my sister's gonna be on this, I was like, heck yeah. Love that. I'm the oldest of 4, so.
The oldest of 4. I am the oldest of how many? 10?
10?
10.
There are 10 of us?
Well, so
Where are you
there's
counting?
2 steps. There's 2 steps, and 3 adopted.
We don't have any steps.
Well, technically we don't have any steps anymore, but as of like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Wow. Still. Lots of
We
siblings
grew up.
over
We
the
grew
years.
up with them, so.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Very
You're
fun.
you're the second youngest, so you're not turning.
What?
older.
I don't have an older brother. What are you talking about?
God, you're such a tool.
I'm just kidding. I have an older brother too.
Okay.
So my mom had my older brother, and then she got with my dad, and then it was me, Tanya, and then my brother Ryan. And then my dad left, got with my stepmother, had 2 more kids,
Oh man.
and then they adopted 3, and then my stepmother had 2 kids as well. So all together there's 11.
Wow.
You
That's
catch on
wild.
that? Because we're gonna quiz you on it later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh man, I have to write that one down.
All right.
That's wild.
It is wild. It was crazy. It was interesting. It was kind of fun at sometimes when Tanya wasn't being a fucking Leo.
Which was never.
I'm just fucking with you.
That's never. I'm never not a Leo.
I know.
Never not a Leo.
We're getting close to 2 hours.
I know. I was looking. I was like, oh my gosh, where you going?
So I'll ask one more question. I'm gonna end up having you come back on probably because I feel like I could just talk to you forever.
Oh yeah, I love that. No, it's been such a good conversation. It's been so good to be able to like talk about all of this. Like it's
I
all
agree.
very new. Yeah.
So so my question is, you said you're a clairvoyant. I was wondering if you could define what clairvoyant is to you, like what you're
So for
experiencing
me-
with it.
For me, I try to keep it simple, and I'm just like, I can see ghosts. I'm at a point with my clairvoyance that, and like, it's not like people like, so, like I'll tell people I'm clairvoyant, and they'll be like, so do you see somebody behind me? And I'm like, no. So it's not always like that. But in some places, sometimes I've seen a full-blown ghost. So like I was saying, I see my grandmother in the living room all the time. She now knows that she's strong enough to the point that she can make herself like seen, and so I can see her. So I guess for me, like I can see ghosts, I can see energies, I can see black figures. I can, like, when I was walking out of the house after I got sick, I was like, take a photo of that doorway over there, or take a video of it, because he's standing right there and he's smiling. Like I saw him. Callie is their audience, so she can hear.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So she told me after I got sick, she physically heard him laughing, like she heard him cracking up, that he made. And so when we did a dowsing rod session later on, she asked, did you make sick? And it like swung wide open. It was like, hell yeah. Like, yeah, I did. when we were reviewing that footage of where I was like, photograph or take some film of that thing, we saw a full-blown shadow figure, black figure moving in that area. So
Wow.
it justified what I had saw. So that's like, sometimes I can see full body figures. I see a full apparition. I've seen Archangel Michael several times. That was my first spiritual awakening, where I finally like committed that, this is what I'm doing. I was seeing Archangel Michael nonstop. I saw him so many times.
Yeah, when you were talking about cleansing the houses or your house, or I'm pretty
like-
sure it was the
like-
cleansing. I was gonna ask you if you do the Archangel Michael, what the hell is it called?
like the prayer.
The prayer, yes, there we go.
I don't usually do his prayer, but I'll usually call upon Archangel Michael. I have an Archangel Michael bracelet that I wear as well. So that goes back. I have an Archangel tarot deck as well. So I do like to work with the archangels. It goes back to the Catholic faith. I still have all my sacraments, when people are like, do you believe in God? I believe in all gods and all goddesses. With being pagan, you can choose your deities who you want to work with.
Mhm.
I don't work with all of them. I don't feel the need to work with like Hades or Medusa. I don't work with them. I don't find the need, but some people do. So, when people are like, do you believe in the Christian God? Even though I don't recognize as Catholic anymore, I do, because who am I to tell them that their belief system's wrong? They tell everyone else that their belief system's wrong, but I'm not going to do that. That's not my place. So
I think everybody is right in a certain aspect, like you were saying early on in this conversation.
Yeah, that's where I've, when it comes to the progression of, celebrating religions, like I do, if, I'm just happy when people have a belief system, because it's when people are like, I don't believe in anything. I was like, how do you believe you don't believe in anything? If you don't believe in
look
anything,
outside and you don't believe in shit, what are you talking about?
Right, exactly. And so it's just like, that's where I'm like, just believe in something, because it makes no sense when someone's like, oh yeah, no, I'm atheist. And I'm like, really? Like, you believe in nothing? Like there's just nothing? Okay. But yeah, no, for me, my clairvoyance is I can see the unseen, I guess. But there's about 10 clairs. Like, that question's also loaded. Some people might tell you there's 4, some might tell you there's 7. I recently have learned, I always believed that there was 7. I've now have been told that there's 10. I read, there was like, I can't name all of them, but there's like 10 different clairs or so of different gifts. So clairaudient is one. And like, I have some, but it's not as strong as Callie's. Like, Callie can hear way more than, like, I get downloads and I hear sometimes, but it's usually more like a warning. Like, I usually get it more as a warning. But I see ghosts. Like, that's probably my biggest thing. And like in my house, we have 4 mirrors that face each other in my mother's room for like the last 24 years of my life. Many believe that mirrors facing each other are portals.
Yeah.
And I very much believe that is a reason why I've seen so many ghosts over the years. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, to this day, I believe at 14 or like 13, 14, I saw a full-blown angel hovering over my sister's bed.
Wow.
My cousin who used to live here, he had said that he used to see my grandfather in the house. I've seen my grandfather in the house. I don't know what it is, but when I sit outside, I swear there's something dark that like watches me from my mother's room. So I do think that is a portal. I do believe that that's a big reason why I see entities as well. So that's why I was also like, you didn't tell me that you saw, Dawson saw an entity in my house, because at least like if I know that there's been stuff going around, I'll usually do like a clearing. I'll smudge, just move the stagnant energy. But I mean, at this point, like, people are like, how can you live with that? I used to turn, like when I was younger, I turned myself off to it. I was afraid after I saw a ghost at 9 years old. I didn't want to deal with it. It was horrifying. Even when I was 18, if I wasn't living with it, I probably would have chose to not see it. At this point now, at 30, almost 32, you can't turn it off. It's just there now. There's no turning it off. Like the cat's out of the bag. So that's the biggest reason why I started doing the paranormal, is so I can embrace this clairvoyance. Because otherwise I'm just living with the spirits that come in and out of my house. And that's not that fun. Because I don't really want to get to know them in my house. I'd rather, if you're passing on through, you're passing on through.
Right.
But like at least with the haunted houses, I can go talk with the ghost and then I can go home and be on with my night.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So you want to just plug your stuff, your Etsy and all that real quick one more time?
I was gonna say, do you want me to write it into the chat or you want me to say it?
You can say it and then send me the links and I can add it to this in the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, so if you're into paranormal, my paranormal handle is at Witchy Paranormal, WITChyParanormal. And if you're into the witchy side, which both of them have witchiness, but if you're into like the crystal side and looking for crystal healing or Reiki healing or anything among that kind of category, you can also go to at Heal with Christina, HealWithKristina. And my Etsy, I'll give you the website, but it is on my Etsy.
Okay.
I think it's actually also on my Instagram. It's on both my Instagrams.
Perfect.
Yeah. Follow me there.
Nice. Well, it was definitely fantastic to talk to you. I'm so glad I reached out to you because this was such an interesting conversation.
I agree. It was.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. No, thank you so much for reaching out. I was really excited when I saw it. It makes me very excited to share my stories and, tell people about it, because the more that I've been talking about it, I find out more people have been dealing with their own things that they don't know who to talk to. So
right.
That's the next thing, Kevin. If you ever have questions with your spiritual journey, you can always just text me, just message me. I'm literally just a message away.
I will. And that's another reason why I started this podcast, where for people to talk to me about things if they didn't necessarily have somebody to talk to. So, so that's, I like to help people and I like to talk to people. I tend to talk a little bit too long sometimes, especially when I'm interested in the topic. So, but
there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, if you have anybody who has experiences or stories that they want to share and they want to get out there, you can definitely send them my way.
Absolutely.
You got my Instagram, which is where_the weird ones are. And then they can email me at wheretheweirdonesare@gmail.com. So
sounds good. I will absolutely do that.
All right. Well, I hope you have a good night.
Yes, I hope you have a great night too. And talk soon.
Yes, ma'am.